Dang, some of these comments are pretty demanding and harsh. I think you're doing great and I hope you don't get down by what people say. Hi guys, welcome back. In this devlog, we'll be reading some comments from our previous devlogs and we'll be reacting to them. Also, by the end of this video, we'll be developing features that you guys have suggested, so stick around. For those of you who are new here, I'm June and I'm making a reverse RPG game where you play as a monster instead of the usual RPG game heroes. In our game, you play as a wisp who can transform into different monster types to fight human invaders, exploiting resources from your island home. Let's begin. So you have here from Yamatanaorochi. Few ideas that came to me after watching this video, all transformations. A shadow, a creature that can hide in the shadows or go unnoticed and attack enemies by surprise. It would also have the ability to possess humans in order to infiltrate in settlements and kill other humans. The main downsides to this form is that it's sucks in frontal combat and its ability to hide negated when it gets too close to light source or exposed to the sun. So for this first type, our designs for our creatures should fit our lore. So as for shadow, it's really hard to have the wisp become a shadow because the wisp can only conjure inanimate objects like skeletons or armor or the trees for the tree creature. As for the ability to possess humans in order to infiltrate settlements, we already have this feature for the armor where you can disguise yourself as a human and try to infiltrate human settlements during the day. You can't infiltrate during the night because the armor will be glowing. Here we have Skeleton Dog, a more fragile version with a skeleton but also more agile and capable of quick attacks. We can't have different creatures as of the moment since our animations are limited to humanoids only. So maybe in the future we will add some creatures. Here we have Fire Element. This form can create projectiles capable of burning enemies and explosive fireball. Receive continuous damage when exposed to water. Water can also eliminate the burning effect. So actually, just to give you a spoiler for one of the endings, I plan on making one of the ending open up for you to become a fire elemental. So that's all I have to say for that type of ending. So next is a toxic ant, a variant of an ant capable of creating poisonous clouds and poison traps. Shares weaknesses with the common ant. I actually decided to make each of the monster type have different variety. So for example, for the skeleton, we have the skeleton warrior, a quick and agile skeleton who uses weapons and tools to his advantage. And second variation is the necromancer type where it can summon skeleton warriors to fight for him. He's very fragile but he can summon skeletons. As for the ant, we will have the stealth ant where his skills are basically more on the stealth type where he can hide in bushes, climb on trees and wait for ambushes. And we also have the second type of ant, which is this toxic ant type where he can put poison on his claws or use mushrooms on him where it can puff spores where it poisons or paralyzes the enemies. You will be unlocking this toxic ant type when you have the herbalist quest line for Cassandra, since Cassandra will also be your herbalist. Cassandra will be specializing on herbs also within your dungeon. Another comment that talks about Patreon from Toriel Hobbit. Set up a Patreon, roll sub for sure. So Toriel, thank you so much for your support. I'll leave the Patreon link down below. So I have here from the Langsmith. It would be cool if the wisp could merge with your dungeon somehow. This could be similar to the forest vision thing you showcased earlier. It would allow you to see all sections of your dungeon at once. Maybe also act as a way to give orders, control your minions without actually having to go physically to them. And thus you could quickly communicate with multiple wisps, etc. It would be cool to have a dedicated room for this, easily accessed from all parts of the dungeon. A shrine thing would be cool, maybe even that room with the skulls in the fountain thingy that was shown earlier in the video. I've been thinking about this comment a lot and there's actually one problem with this. Our dungeon design is actually multiple layers. You see on the side view like this, we'll have multiple layers. We have a top layer, a bottom layer, and if we try to make it a top view, there are times when the top layer of the dungeon will cover the lower layer of the dungeon. It would really be hard for us to view the dungeon from above. Actually, it's not really needed for us to see the dungeon from a top view since we don't really need to control the minions, like micromanage everything. The idea for the dungeon or the settlements is you just assign a wisp to that simple task and the wisp will go to somewhere and conjure itself to be a skeleton. And then we'll do the task task for you. You don't need to manage them around. You just assign the wisp and they will try to go and do the stuff that is needed for you. So for example, you will assign a wisp to a lumber settlement and their goal is to gather wood or chop down trees and put them in the sawmill, and they will try to saw the trees into planks. And a trading station or a trading post, you'll assign a wisp there, multiple wisps, and the wisp will transform into an ant and some skeletons, and the ant will pull the cargo from that settlement to supply resources to your dungeon, and the skeletons will try to defend it on the way. So that's actually the plan for the management of your minions. You just simply assign them just like your skills, and the AI will just do everything. So if you're a very interesting idea from Sunny, it will be nice after you conquer the enemy settlement, you have to defend from invasion of these humans. You had to keep guards, monsters and skeletons, or you could be on a quest to receive this side quest, defend your territory, and you had time to reach the village, for example, to accept. When you reach, there's some humans are attacking guards and protecting, like you arrive in the middle of warfare. So this is a very interesting idea, and actually this comment inspired me to make the events for Wisplight more smarter. I don't want the events or the quests similar to most of the quest designs for most of the RPGs, where there's an exclamation point by the head and you try to go to them and talk to them, and they will give you a quest like fetch this or fetch that or kill this or kill that. I want our events to be dynamic. For example, let's say you have your dungeon already and you have conquered a human settlement where they produce iron ore from the mines, and one day Cassandra will tell you that, Wisp, our supplies from the mines didn't arrive. You can check it out to see what's happening, something like that. It's your option to go and check the mine. So if you try to go and check the mines, you'll follow the road where your caravan passes through. You will see that there are broken caravan remnants, and it will lead you to a trail that will lead you to a group of bandits that are trying to ambush caravans from that area. So that's one quest event. Another quest event would be maybe when you arrive at the mines, maybe there are some bandits or maybe some mercenaries camping around the area, preventing the camp from releasing resources towards your dungeons. Or maybe a simple event like maybe your mines are conquered by mercenary groups and your goal is to retake them. So something like that. So I want our events designed to be dynamic. Like, I want us, the player, to be just a part of the world, a world that is living and a world that is moving. With or without you, the game will have its events running. With you taking part of it or with you not taking part of it, the events will happen. So one example for that is, for example, when Cassandra tries to tell you that the supplies from the mines didn't arrive and you try to investigate it, maybe what will happen is when you go there, the camp is already overrun and you need to retake it. Or maybe another scenario is when your dungeon is under attack and you try to ignore the request from Cassandra. Like, she will say, Wisp, our dungeon is under attack and there are a lot of heroes here trying to destroy our dungeon or trying to capture your fellow Wisp. And you try to ignore that request. When you try to go to your dungeon, you will see that there are no longer Wisp around and Cassandra is no longer around, and one of your quest goal is to go find Cassandra somewhere out there in the human settlements where they are imprisoned, and you'll try to free them so that you can gain back your dungeon once again. I want the events to be something like that, not just like the basic events where you see in most RPGs where there's an exclamation and they try to ask you for something. So if you have some ideas for dynamic events, let me know down below. I will read all of them and try to put them in my notes so that maybe in the future we can add them once we've laid the foundation for the events for our game. So again, thank you, Sunny, for your awesome comment. This inspired me to make our events dynamic and smart. So you have here from Dawson the Destroyer. You should make lesser heroes adventure to hunt you, somewhat like the orc bosses in Shadow Mordor. You should also have legendary heroes act as real boss fights. Maybe certain human settlements have also hero, or maybe if you attack humans too rapidly, a hero group will come to the island. Kind of like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We'll be having this as a feature in the game where there are hunts. If you're trying to attack a settlement more often, there will be a bounty system where that type of monster will have his bounty increased. quest, and this will force you to transfer to a different monster type so that that bounty will try to decrease as time goes by. The higher the bounty, the more dangerous enemies will try and hunt you, since there will be multiple hunter groups or hunter factions that will try and ambush you or try to hunt you down. So one way to remove that bounty from you is to transform to a different monster type so that that bounty will go down. So that's one of the ideas for the bounty system or the hunt system for Wisplight. As for the settlement, I want each settlement, once you have a very high upgraded settlement, I want to make a system where we can create a boss in that settlement, and you can upgrade that boss to your specifications so that they can defend that settlement also. So you have here from Brian, yo, this sounds so sick. I can't wait to see where it goes. I really like the trade-off between becoming buff or having minions. The idea that you'll lose a skill and a level makes me think that the thing occupied that Wisp should then have those upgrades. I could see that making for interesting army compositions. That's part of our leveling system, where not only you will level up your character, but you can also transfer those level up points to your dungeons or your settlements where you can upgrade them. So the way to level up your skills is to find other wisps within the island where they can merge with you, and you can use those skills to upgrade your monster or upgrade your settlements and dungeons. Piggybacking off the conversation about heroes, what if there were dungeon cave missions where the player low-level monster are meant to be fodder against stacked adventuring party? The player would try to whittle down the adventuring party supplies and health, hopefully pick one or two off while retreating into the dungeon. The last room is a large unique guardian, would be like a boss defending your treasure or resources from the adventurers. This is actually a plan. As what I've discussed before, the dungeons and settlements will have their very own mini bosses where you can upgrade and customize. And there will be raids also where mercenary groups will try to invade your settlements, or they will try to invade your dungeons, and one of your event is to help defend that settlement or help defend the dungeon. So we have here from Rusty Dusty Gaming, I believe it would be cool if you could go to a skeleton blacksmith and upgrade your weapons or get special armor that fits your monster that you're using. Yes, there will be a blacksmith, and he's actually human. His name is Francis. He's one of the companions of Cassandra and will also be your companion. He will be acting as your builder. He's the builder for your settlements and your dungeons. He will not act as a blacksmith, but he will teach your skeletons to do the blacksmithing for you. So you'll have a smithy where you can assign your skeletons, and you'll have storages where you can assign which type of weapons or which type of items you want the skeletons to make. The plan is for us to have two types or two varieties of weapons. First is the iron, and second is the steel type of weapon, which has more damage and durability. Also for the armor, yes, we'll be making armor, especially for the armor monster type and also for the skeleton. Maybe we'll add some maybe some weapons for the ant. Can make iron claws for the ant also. So we have here from Gig Gil. Very good, bro, keep going. Thanks, bro. One idea for another kind of group is to also have other monsters. They can be like some monsters that also feeds from other monsters, or monster slaves captured and exploited the rain. The island actually has many dungeons, and within the dungeons there will be some dungeons that have necromancers occupying them, which they will summon skeletons, as well as the ants. There will be ants that are controlled by druids where you will be fighting, and once you defeat an ant, they will drop a wisp where they can merge with you to add to your skill tree. There will definitely be monsters that will be fighting you also that is controlled by humans. So as for the weapon variety, definitely there will be explosives, especially to fight against the golem, since the weakness of the golem are explosive weapons. Flames, yes, there will be flames, especially to counter the ant. The weakness for the ant are flames, and there will be fire damage also. Horses. So as for horses, I plan on giving horseback mechanic for the armor, like specific only for the armor. The design for each quirk is something like this. Like for example, the skeleton, its main quirk is the ability to summon minions so that you can assign them to dungeons. That's its main quirk. As for the ant, the main quirk for the ant is stealth. The ant is the only character that has stealth. As for the armor is the only character that can mount on horses, so that we can have a system where the player can traverse faster all throughout the island. As for the golem is the only creature or monster that can destroy gates and destroy settlements. So there will be areas within the island that can only be accessed if you already have the golem, and you just need to destroy gates so that you can enter that area. And as for the water elemental, there are also places within the island that is only accessible if you're a water elemental and you can seep through places. Also, the water elemental is the only monster type where you can fast travel, where you can go to a water source and then dip yourself within the water and fast travel through the water currents and appear in a different place where there's water also. This is our system for the fast travel. Since the island is big, so we need to have a fast travel system so that you can transfer from one place to another instantly. That's where the water elemental comes in. So each monster type should have a special quirk that is only unique for them. We have here from SirHorn19. Lol, how about adding some actual gameplay instead of auxiliary graphic tweak? You even have a progression system in mind? How do you get new forms and when? Are they strictly progress keys like golems break walls but are otherwise useless? Can you change form at any time, or do you have to go and find a spawn point for your form you want? Are there going to be leveling specializations for different forms? The reason you shouldn't focus too much on graphics is because your game is going to feel like this ingenious asset flip when the gameplay isn't at least at the same level of polish. So I'm assuming that Sir Horn haven't watched some of our videos, since most of these questions are actually answered by the previous videos. So let me answer them for you. Do you have a progression system in mind? Yes, there's a progression system with the skills. There's a progression system with territories, leveling. There's story progression also. How do you get new forms and when? You will get new forms as you progress with the story. First, your first form is a wisp. You can transform into a tree creature as you progress and explore the world. Then you will meet Cassandra and can transform into a skeleton later on, and so on. So there's a progression system that comes along with the story. Are they strictly progress keys like golems break walls but otherwise useless? No, they are not just progress keys. Can you change form at any time, or do you have to go to find a spawn point for the form you want? You can change any form anytime, and you can go to a certain requirement so that you can transform into a different monster type. For example, let's say you're a skeleton and you want to transform into an ant. So you can just break free from the skeleton form and then go to a nearby tree where there is life essence, and you can conjure an ant from there. Likewise, if you're an ant, you can free yourself from the ant and go to a dungeon and find some skeletons there and then transform into a skeleton type. Are there going to be leveling specializations for different forms? Yes, the skill tree is more like similar to Path of Exile but more simpler. It will be a skill tree where you put points for every wisp that you will be merging with. The skill tree will give you passive skills and active skills. At the same time, will unlock new forms as you progress. They also unlock special skills like merger skills, like what I've said before with the skeleton and the armor, and then the special skill is a skeleton with armor. So for your last statement, the reason you should focus too much on graphics is because your game is going to feel like a disingenuous asset flip when the gameplay isn't at least at the same level of polish. I understand why you've made this statement, because I assume that you only saw this video where I talk about the graphics of the water. So yeah. So actually, I discussed about the graphics of the water because this is one of the feedback from where my friends gave me feedback of the game when they tested it. So one of their feedback is to improve on the water, and I make devlogs specifically for all the development progress that has been made. Even as small as the water reflections. So I make devlogs for them so that I can document them. I suggest, Sir Horn, that you watch some of the videos, specifically the videos where I explain the game mechanics for Wisplight. It explains the entire scope of the game. So we have here from Arctic Worm Game. Dang, some of these comments are pretty demanding and harsh. I think you're doing great, and I hope you don't get down by what people say. It's easy for people to ask for things who don't know what it's like to be developing a large game with just a small team or by yourself. Steady on and have fun. I don't really get affected with negative comments. In fact, I learn a lot from negative comments, and I do truly understand on their perspective. Maybe it's their first time watching my video and they haven't any idea of the rest of the development. since our devlogs are fragmented, you can't really understand the entire scope of the game by just watching one devlog about water reflections or lock-on systems. I truly understand their perspective. The key here is just not to look at things on the negative side, but also to look at their perspective positively. I'm sure that every comment here, we will learn a lot from them, so I just read them and sift through which is good for the game or which is not good for the game. If there are criticisms, just like trying to eat a fish, when you eat a fish, you don't eat the bones, just throw away the bones and just eat the meat. So it's the same with reading these comments. We just have to absorb the things that are beneficial to our game and just discard the things that doesn't matter or doesn't make sense at all. So I hope you get my insight on that. So we have here from Ninja Dev 21. If you plan on making the island that big, you should have the Wisp be able to transform or take control of a creature that can either fly or move fast, as it would take a while to get somewhere you want if you're just walking in the big map. By the way, you should add some sort of sound effect when the blades collide, when the blades are being swinged. Yeah, so first about the sound. We're not yet on the sound design part. We'll be making that in the future. As for the traversal, we've been thinking a lot about this with my friends. The problem with a very big island, as what you've said, is traversal. So we have two ways to travel fast in the game. First is the fast travel mechanic, where we transform into a water elemental and we can fast travel from point A to point B through water systems. So the water elemental would just go to a water system where you can select a point in the map where you marked before and you can travel through there. So that's our fast travel system. The second traversal system is via mount, where the armor can mount horses and you can travel and explore around the world fast and do mounted combat within the plains. Since I will be designing the island similar to Elden Ring, where there are legacy areas where we call settlements. For example, here we have the Dark Forest, and at the edge of the Dark Forest there we see the swamp, and at the boundary of the Dark Forest there will be a very huge plain before we get to the mountains area. So you need to traverse from the Dark Forest part to the plains so that you can go to the mountain area. And that's very far since the island is very big. The island is as big as Skellige Isle of The Witcher 3. So it's very big and you need a horse so that you can travel fast. So at first, you don't really need a horse within the Dark Forest, since the Dark Forest is just a small area. But as you progress and expand the boundaries or the boundaries of the game, as you capture the settlement that is guarding a choke point of the Dark Forest and the plains, you need to have a way to travel fast. And that's where the mounted horse mechanic comes in, so that you can travel back and forth from places within the plains. That's the idea for the design of the island. You have here from Anti-Josha. Oh no, my condolences to you. I hope you find a good job again soon. A better one. The bleeding everywhere looks fantastic. How about a perk that makes you stronger the more you get covered in blood? Like Berserk mode or recharging your life energy with foreign life essence. Your dead priest have a ragdoll afterwards. He was wriggling a bit. So yeah, the priest, the acolyte, actually that's a bug with the animation. I already fixed that. As for the Berserk mode, I really like the idea. I think we'll apply it to the armor, where he can auto-convert the blood that is scattered around his armor and auto-convert it to life essence or auto-heal himself. So that's a very good idea. I want the armor to be inspired by Berserk, by Guts from Berserk. Thanks for the insights. Arctic Forum Games. Good improvement, but I still see the fleeing mechanic being tedious. Perhaps if the enemies had something like Fear Meter that is directly tied to their fleeing mechanic, as well as an ability for the player that allows them to track them using their fear, would make it easier to chase them down. It also seems that there isn't much reason to attack them down besides maybe getting experience to level up or something. It could be interesting if the player could consume fallen enemies to regenerate some health, making the chase a little more worth it. To me, the initial encounter should be the hardest, but the chase at the end should be gratifying and less difficult. It's the moment you already won the battle because you broke the willpower. Anywho, excited to see more of you. There's a reason to try to kill everyone that is fleeing, because the fleeing enemies could alert nearby settlements and it will trigger two events, either the event to hunt you down or the event to have the settlement defend itself. And also, we will be making a healing mechanic. It's a skill where you can convert corpses, or actually the blood of the corpses, into life essence, since life essence is actually gathered from dying creatures of the island. So actually the lore there is when a creature dies, The Wisplight, or the energies from the island, stops the energy of that living creature from dying or decomposing, and it will immediately convert it to life essence, where you can use as energy to do your magic and conjuring. I would create a skill where you can convert those blood and corpses into life essence so that you can use a skill to heal your life or your HP. Let's first tweak some features from the previous version of the resource gathering mechanic. Previously, when we tried to gather resources using Skelly will kneel down, unable to move. And it's boring since you need to wait for a few seconds before all the life essence falls down from a tree. So let's modify this and have Skelly walk while the essence is bursting. Also, we will remove the trails since it stacks up a lot and looks off when there are many particles around. Let's test it. With our new tweaks, we can now freely move around while the life essence is dropping down from the tree. This will allow us to freely move while in combat, giving us the opportunity to regenerate some of our lost life essence. Now let's apply this mechanic to our corpses. First, let's make a spawner and attach it to our corpses. Then we'll have a collider that will trigger the menu to shine Wisplight to the corpse. The particles will then activate and get absorbed by the skeleton. Now let's have it regenerate our life essence bar. It's working. Now let's try to test all corpses at once. Let's start with these two. Seems to be working fine. And the life essence particles getting absorbed by our particle force field is working as intended. Our life essence is now regenerating. Let's try and get more from these two. Looking great. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. By the way, I would like to thank my Patreons for supporting me on my journey. Thanks a lot for the support. Now, our next feature is to make a skill that will heal our health bar. See you on the next video where we make the healing skill for our skeleton. Till next time.